Hey, Ma. Good. How are you? Good. Look, this is tough to even spit out here, so I'm just going to try to get right to the point. Would you be able to lend me money just for a few months, maybe? I've hit a real rough patch. No, no. It was Charles Oliveira. Yeah, see, I had him winning by submission. I was hung up on the fact that he's dangerous. He's very dangerous. And he is. But so is the guy he was fighting, and he knocked him the fuck out. Nah, it was like 90 seconds, ma. Maybe 2 minutes, I hope. He almost hit a takedown. I think he landed an elbow. All right. Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who sometimes overdoes it with the shtick. But either way, I am here to talk about UFC Fight Night Teixeira versus Lewis. Let's get into it. Okay, opening up the card, we have Fatima Kline taking on Melissa Martinez. My prediction for this fight is Fatima Kline wins, and I'll go with her winning by disqualification. Whatever. I'll take her winning by decision. Okay? That is my official prediction. Having said that, she is a minus 1,200 favorite, which is fucking crazy. And on the flip side, Melissa Martinez is plus 750, which warrants a bet from me. My bet is on Melissa Martinez. Those odds are crazy, and of course, I'll wait for her decision prop so I can put a few more sprinkles on her. And by sprinkles, of course, I mean like thousands. Thousands. You might mean $1.40 because you're a poor pile of shit, but I'm swimming in it, baby. So I'll sprinkle a few thousands on Melissa Martinez. But yeah, look, Melissa Martinez, her loss looks worse than the loss of Fatima Kline, even though Elise Reed, who beat Melissa Martinez, beat Jasmine Jasdavicius, who's the one girl to beat Fatima Kline. But I still see what everybody else sees with Kline. That one loss to Jasmine is very forgivable. She took that fight on short notice. Let's see if I can pull that fight up. She took that fight on short notice, moved up in weight, and fought the best girl she's ever fought. And Jasmine had a lot of momentum back then, a year ago. But now, of course, that momentum has only compounded into a championship contender. Jasmine is right there, and she's soaring. So it's a very forgivable loss. But yeah, Fatima Kline, she's a natural strawweight, and she's done nothing but kick ass at strawweight. And I do think she is going to be too much for Martinez. Martinez has never been finished. Her one loss is to Elise Reed. But I do think she certainly could have lost to Desiree Yanez in that fight before that, which is another fucking 3-year gap. I don't know what's going on with this girl. She's still only 27 years old, but hopefully she gets going here. But yeah, I've got her having too much trouble with Fatima Kline. I think Melissa Martinez could have an advantage on the feet. She's fast. She's got excellent kicks, but she might not. Fatima Kline is a very good striker herself. The thing is, Fatima's better on the ground, though, I think. And that's where I think Fatima Kline's going to be looking to take this fight. I think she's the bigger woman. And my prediction is she doesn't go through Melissa Martinez. But it wouldn't surprise me if she went through her on the ground. Fatima, she's only got one submission victory, but she's definitely got grappling skills. Yeah, just one submission victory. But of course, you can finish a girl with a TKO on the ground as well, like she did against Victoria Dudakova, my girlfriend, bitch. But I just think overall Fatima Kline should win this fight. Am I 12-1 confident? No, I'm not. Again, Melissa Martinez only has one loss, and it's to UFC's Elise Reed. So even though Kline's got a much prettier profile and a much brighter future, at least on paper, Melissa Martinez is still somebody who hasn't proven herself, for better or worse. And I think there is definite value on her in this matchup right now at plus 750. So yeah, the pick is Kline, and I doubt I'll bet on anything. And yeah, you see the over under at 2.5 rounds there. I do like this fight to go the distance. That's my official prediction, but I could never trust it. Like I said, Fatima Kline is too skilled to guarantee that. So yeah, in general, I'm staying away from this. Aside from the few thousand that I'm putting on Melissa Martinez, some chump change. But yeah, in general, lopsided odds on this one. So I'm staying away. Next up, we have Mitch Ramirez taking on Mike Davis in another fight where I'm picking this guy to win by disqualification, but I'm betting on this guy. And yeah, I'll be betting on Mitch Ramirez. I haven't bet on him yet, but he is certainly worth it at plus 650. My pick is definitely Mike Davis wins, though. And I'll take Davis winning by decision, even though Mitch Ramirez has been finished a few times. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to count on decision or anything on the Mike Davis side. Much like Fatima Kline, he's way too big of a favorite. So in general, I'm staying away from this, aside from putting a few sprinkles, a few thousand on Mitch Ramirez. And by the way, in case you can't joke, I don't have thousands. I've never even seen thousands. But yeah, I'm going with Mike Davis. Mitch Ramirez has been finished against Thiago Moises and Carlos Prates. Prates knocked him out on the Contender Series. Mitch Ramirez got in his face, implemented some wrestling, but it wasn't enough. And Carlos Prates did what Carlos Prates does. He waited, he bided his time, and then he knocked him out. Thiago Moises looked like Ernesto Hoost, taking out Mitch Ramirez in his last fight. Although Thiago Moises, he may not be known as the biggest leg kicker, but uh, between that fight and the Trey Ogden fight as of late, his leg kicks have really come alive. So Thiago Moises, he's got a Ricardo Arona thing going on. But he's a jiu-jitsu guy with some heavy leg kicks, and it was too much for Mitch Ramirez. Mike Davis, he moves very well, and he's a really solid athlete, well-rounded guy. He's only got 2 submission victories, but that last one over Natan Levy really impressed me. And I think he's just got it going on everywhere. The reason I would even waste sprinkles against him in this fight is because of his last fight against Faraz Siam. Faraz Siam's a very good fighter, but still, that was the worst Mike Davis has looked, regardless of how good the opponent was. He just didn't look great there. I don't think the wheels are coming off. He's 32 years old, going on 33. He's in his prime, and he's already shown enough upside with this 4-fight winning streak in the UFC where he's got my respect and he's got my pick. I have to pick him to win. My fucking alarm is going off like a jerk off. But yeah, I have to pick Mike Davis to win here. We've seen him throw down hard on the feet with Mason Jones. We've seen him submit Natan Levy. We've seen him out wrestle thoroughly Slavakos. He's just he's a problem, and I think he's going to be too much for Mitch Ramirez, who hasn't proven himself to be UFC level. Mitch Ramirez got some good victories, but nothing astounding. And the 2 times he's fought UFC fighters, he's been put away. So he just doesn't have a lot of upside. He's 32 years old, only a month or so younger than Mike Davis. He's in his prime, Mitch Ramirez, but I can't pick him here. I think Mike Davis is going to have a little too much for him. He's got a few inches, an inch of height, a few inches of reach. Mike Davis as well. I think he moves very well, and I think, again, he's the more reliable, well-rounded guy at the UFC level. But yeah, Mitch Ramirez plus 650. I've got a few pennies. I'll put them down on Mitch Ramirez. These are men. So unlike in the Fatima Kline, Melissa Martinez fight, they each have an equalizer. They can knock the other one out with one shot. And I think that's something there. So yeah, staying away from this in general. I couldn't tell you much like the last one if it's a decision or a finish for Mike Davis. As for, betting on the over or the under here. But my pick is definitely Mike Davis, and he is just way too big of a favorite for me to really bet on this with anything serious. So another one I'm staying away from in general, but the pick, no doubt, is Mike Davis. Next up, we have Walter Walker versus Kennedy Njokuani. My prediction here is Walter Walker wins, and I'm going to take him winning by TKO, even though I'm not too confident in that method of victory. But in general, I like Walter Walker to win this fight, whether it's by decision, by heel hook, which has been a thing lately, or by knockout, and which is how Kennedy Njokuani has typically lost. I know Lucas Dreschke might disagree with me on that pick, as he outpointed Walter Walker, handing him his only loss in his UFC debut. And then I believe in his last fight and Kennedy's last fight, Dreschke was knocked out against Kennedy Njokuani. So, yeah, using MMA math, it's a bad prediction on my part. But I'm still going with Walter Walker. I think he's a different type of heavyweight than Lucas Dreschke. I think he can win a more physical fight, mixing in grappling, getting on top. That's not really a thing for Dreschke. And I also think he's shown some nice new wrinkles in his game. Walter Walker getting 2 consecutive heel hook victories over Dontel Mays and Junior Tafa. They may not be the best overall UFC heavyweights or the best overall UFC grapplers, but that's still a really good look for Walter Walker, showing he's got some new wrinkles and he's shown confidence in that skill. But that is not my prediction. I mean, I certainly think it could happen, him lacing up a leg. But my prediction is he wins more of a conventional heavyweight slugfest. I think Kennedy Njokuani moves well. I think he has a speed advantage, no doubt. He's the former light heavyweight. But I think Walter Walker has a lot of good traits as a fighter. There's no doubting his chin as of now. Not saying Kennedy can't finish him, but there's no doubting Walter's chin. And even though his cardio doesn't look impeccable, he's certainly a guy that can hit those clutch takedowns when he gets tired. And I like that about Walter Walker. And I think here again, assuming his chin is safe, which is not a great assumption, I think he can wear down Kennedy Njokuani and tire him out. I think he can make his heavyweight physicality a problem on the feet just with his power. And in tight, I think he can be the dominant physical heavyweight. Walter Walker is a guy that likes to get on top of you. Kennedy's a guy whose chin I've had doubt in the past. He's looked good since moving up to heavyweight, and theoretically that should help his chin. But he's still the guy who I think is more fragile in this fight and gets knocked out with one shot. And as for the points battle, I've mentioned this the last few times I talked about Kennedy Njokuani, but he had a life and death battle with Ovince St. Preux when Ovince St. Preux was in his late 50s or whatever. This was like a year and a half ago. And that's not a great look. Ovince St. Preux taking it to you. And I believe his last fight, or one of them anyway. And I just think Walter Walker, as sloppy as he's looked along the way, he's shown a bunch of great traits and a lot of these victories. And in his one defeat, again, he also showed some traits as well, not getting stopped, I guess. He can be reduced to a plodding zombie, I think, but he's the guy that's still developing. 27 going on 28 years old. And what better proof of that development than those last 2 heel hook victories? So I'm taking Walter Walker here. I think he's a different type of fighter than Lucas Dreschke. I don't think MMA math plugs in here. And I've got Walter Walker handing Kennedy Njokuani his first loss at heavyweight. Walter is plus 170. That's good for me. The over-under, it's pretty much a toss-up, and I think that's right. I could easily see this being a slower, grinding, exhausting heavyweight decision. But then again, they're heavyweights, so there's always going to be some finishing potential. So yeah, in general, I'm picking Walter Walker, and I'm betting on Walter Walker. I don't know if I'll be looking for one prop or another. Maybe something will stand out, but I'm very content with having bet on his money line. Walter Walker is the pick. Okay, next up we have Lauren Murphy making a return against Eduardo Moura. My prediction for this fight is Moura wins, and I'll go with her winning by TKO. And the basis for that prediction is it justifies my bet on the under, set at plus 240 here. But in general, Lauren Murphy is a girl who's historically been a lock to survive a losing fight. Her one finish loss comes to Valentina Shevchenko in the fourth round, a championship round, which is not going to be available here in this fight for Moura. So yeah, on paper, Lauren Murphy should not get finished. But I think Eduardo Moura, she's shown to have more pop in her punches than I gave her credit for in her last fight against Veronica Hardy. I really liked her striking there against what I thought would be a faster girl who would have her way on the feet. And on the ground, of course, Eduardo Moura, that's where her real finishing prowess comes into play. And believe me, if I say she wins by TKO, I'm thinking it's from the full mount. No one's ever gone through Lauren Murphy on the ground, but this is a woman who's 40 fuck years old taking on a woman who's 20 fuck years old, Eduardo Moura, unless maybe she's over 30. I don't know. She is 31. All right, she's 30 fuck years old. But she's in her prime. She's finished 9 of her 11 victories. And yeah, she's a monster on top. Even though nobody's gone through Lauren Murphy there, if she's fallen off an athletic cliff, I think Eduardo Moura could be the first girl to get her out of there on the ground. Eduardo Moura's got one loss, and it's to Denise Gomes. Denise Gomes, I think she's one of the more dangerous girls, punch for punch, really fucking powerful. And she was able to outlast and outwork Eduardo Moura. But I have to say, for Moura losing her first fight, losing to a girl like that in the way in which she lost to her, it's impressive, her fatiguing and not getting finished. So that might be a great showcase of her traits. She hasn't lost more than once, so I can't really firmly say she's got this trait or that trait, but it's definitely a good look for her. Lauren Murphy has shown traits. I mean, this girl's got, again, the majority, all but one of her losses are decisions, all to good fighters, and her one TKO loss is in the championship rounds to the best fighter who ever walked the fucking planet, Valentina Shevchenko. And speaking of traits, her last fight against Jessica Andrade, that was as good of a showcase of traits as we've maybe ever seen. Fight probably should have been stopped. I mean, I'm aware of that. We could easily be looking at 2 TKO losses here. The fight could have been stopped, and I think every one of those 15 minutes, it was good enough to be stopped. But Lauren Murphy took it on the chin about 1,000 times from the most dangerous girl, and she stood tall in the end. Of course, that was way back when she was in her late 30s, and now she's in her early 40s. She's days away from turning 42 years old. She's been really inactive, and she's fighting a girl who's, again, in her prime and looking beastly, fighting every few months in the UFC. Every 6 months or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going with Eduardo Moura. Believe me, it wouldn't surprise me if she won and wasn't able to finish Lauren Murphy. But I'm picking the TKO, and I'm certainly playing that as well, with the under anyway. Eduardo Moura, if she wins on top, it could be a submission, obviously, just as well, even though Lauren's never been submitted. But yeah, I think Eduardo Moura in general is very dangerous, very heavy on top. Lauren Murphy, plus 455. That's appealing to me. Don't get me wrong. But I'll wait for Lauren Murphy plays. I'll wait for everything and see if there's one way to go with that. Maybe the point spread and, of course, the decision prop. But it wouldn't be anything serious. It would just be a value bet because she's a gigantic fucking underdog. So, yeah, the pick is Eduardo Moura. I'll take her winning by TKO. And when I say that, I envision it being from the full mount with ground and pound in round 2, I guess. But yeah, part of me is hoping Lauren Murphy pulls the upset. Welcome back. Oh, yeah. Up next, is Chidi Njokuani versus Jake Matthews. My prediction for this one is Jake Matthews wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. Seems most likely to me, even though Chidi hasn't lost by decision too often. He's been finished a bunch. So Jake Matthews by any way really wouldn't surprise me. But I am picking Jake here. The line's pretty close. He's a slight underdog, and I've got him winning this fight. So certainly he's got my bet. I definitely think if you disagree with me, you certainly got a case. Chidi is the better man on the feet, even though Jake's solid on the feet. Chidi, he might be a little more vulnerable, but he's definitely more dangerous. He's got 25 inches of height and reach. Don't quote me on that. And of course, he's the bigger man. He's the guy who has fought at 185. Jake is a guy who's come up from 155 in the past. And yeah, they're meeting in the middle at 170, but no doubt Chidi is generally the bigger man. I say no doubt. I really have no fucking clue. Once I get in there and mix it up, it's always like, oh, so he was stronger that whole time. Huh. What is this shit? But yeah, I'm going with Jake here. Chidi, like I said, he's a little more vulnerable. He's been stopped 8 times in his 10 losses, thrice by submission. That's right, thrice. I'm a cocksucker. And 5 times by TKO, with only 2 losses by decision. His last loss was against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who's incredibly fucking dangerous. He was also finished by Gregory Rodriguez. Actually, it's Rodriguez, apparently. He's Americanized it, which is cool. But yeah, both guys are much more dangerous than Jake. Jake doesn't have that firepower to really go through him, but Jake is a solid fundamental striker. He moves well. And of course, I think he's the more willing grappler here, and he's going to be bringing the threat of the takedown, which should help his striking. Jake, he's got a rock solid chin as well. 1 TKO loss, and that's to Kevin Lee. I don't even need to see it, although I'll show you anyway. Kevin Lee, 4 minutes and 6 seconds in round 1. It's from the back mount. It's a jiu-jitsu loss. But I still think he wins with jiu-jitsu. I know Chidi's a black belt, and Chidi's got a really deep voice, which is a strong asset in a fight. But I think Jake is the better man on the ground, and of course the more willing grappler. So if there are no submissions to settle things here, I still have Jake. That's my phone, by the way, not yours. I still have Jake winning the positional battle and racking up points that are there to be scored on the ground. And I'm thinking he's going to be coming in here looking to play the role of the grappler. Because even though his striking is really solid, I just think Chidi's got too much going on the feet. Jake, again, he's tougher, though. I'd say Jake has the more reliable chin, standing up to Michael Morales in his last loss, I believe. Yes, his last loss. Before that, Matthew Semmelsberger definitely checked his chin a few times. He knocked him down, I believe, in every round, which is not the greatest look overall. But when you get right back up and you get in your opponent's face, yeah, I think Jake Matthews is very fucking tough. And yeah, Jake, I think he's the more well-rounded guy. Chidi has melted a few times on the ground, not to shit talk him, because I would melt in 2 seconds. But there's been guys that have melted him, kind of. Andrei Koreshkov, John Salter. But these are big, strong, great grapplers. And I don't know. I think Jake's most likely path to victory is a decision. That is definitely the pick. But yeah, the money line, the over under is set at 1.5 rounds. I'm not crazy about that. About the over, because it's a shit line there. But I do think this one certainly goes over 1.5 rounds. But I like Jake Matthews here. That's my play. The money line's been fluctuating a little bit, but he is a solid underdog. And yeah, that's my pick. Jake Matthews winning. And again, I'll go with him winning by decision, even though anything's possible. And I'll say this, if Chidi wins, I think his only path, I can't say only, his most likely path to victory is decision. Chidi does have a shot at a knockout. He's incredibly dangerous, and he's got pointy elbows and knees and a bunch of different weapons that aren't available to a guy like Jake. But I still think his primary path to victory is hurting Jake but not finishing him and outpointing him to a decision. But my pick is Jake for the 17th fucking time. Next up, we have Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. My prediction here is Curtis wins, and I'm going to take him winning by decision. I think Chris Curtis, should he make the weight, which I expect him to, it's his first time cutting to welterweight since he's been in the UFC. His fight right before coming to the UFC against former UFC fighter Kenny Robertson was at 170. But he hasn't made that weight in 4 years almost to the day. And now he's 37, almost going on 38 in a matter of hours, really. So, there are question marks here, but I still think Chris Curtis, he's a seasoned pro. I think he's going to hit the weight. I think he's going to look good over the course of 15 minutes against Max Griffin. And of course, if you were to tell me that somebody got finished in this fight, I would pick Chris Curtis to get the victory. Chris Curtis is much more dangerous than Max Griffin, but you never know how anyone's age or the weight cut will affect anyone. Max Griffin, he's been historically very, very durable. He was finished for the first time in years and only the second time ever in his last fight against Michael Chiesa with a round 3 strangulation. Chiesa's a top game monster, and Chris Curtis doesn't know you can have a top game or a bottom game. He thinks he's kickboxing, so he's not likely to fill in to duplicate that victory. And the same goes for Colby Covington, really. Colby Covington TKO'd him in round 3, and that was a very grappling heavy fight with Colby in his face and out wrestling him and grinding on him against the cage. And Chris Curtis is not going to be fighting that type of fight. But Curtis has incredible power. He's got 17 knockouts in his 31 victories. And we've seen his knockout power against excellent fighters in the UFC. So, yeah, I'm picking him to get the first finish if there was to be one. Curtis himself has been very reliable. He was submitted once way back against Tom Galicchio, toothless Tom Galicchio. Where is he? Wow, way back in 2011. But no one's been able to submit him since then. Very few fighters have been able to get Chris Curtis down since then. I mean, it's happened. It happened outside the UFC. But in the UFC, he's been very tough to get down. And only lately has he been taken down a few times. But at welterweight, with his physicality, I think his takedown defense is going to shine. He's going to be a really tough guy to take down. But as far as him getting finished, he was knocked out once against Ray Cooper III, the Robbie Lawler of the PFL. That's it, though, up until Roman Kopylov TKO'd him with a second left in his last fight. Chris was beaten up, and the fight really could have gone the distance easily, obviously, if you look at the time. But I thought it was a fair stoppage. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that he was almost finished, I believe, in the final seconds of a 5-round fight against Brendan Allen 2 fights ago. But in general, I trust his durability. I certainly trust his chin, which has only failed him once. And I trust it against Max Griffin, unless his weight cut takes something huge from Chris Curtis. Max Griffin, he's he's lost a little momentum with that recent loss to Michael Chiesa, but it's not like it took something from him as a fighter. His chin is still strong. I have a lot of faith in his durability. And I think Max Griffin will have a speed advantage here. I think he moves faster than Chris. I'm just, assuming he's the guy that would make the smaller middleweight between the two. And I do think Max Griffin has a lot of great traits as a fighter. I think he can grind and make this one close, but I still have to favor Chris Curtis. I think Chris Curtis shuts down grappling from Max Griffin in the first place. And on the feet, I don't think the speed advantage is going to carry him to a victory. I think the power advantage is going to be more prominent here. And I think Chris Curtis is going to win this with effective counter striking, bringing down the volume of Max Griffin, and also getting any of the big moments on the feet, which again is where I expect this fight to take place. So Chris Curtis is the pick. I haven't bet on Chris Curtis, not yet anyway, but he's definitely the pick. And as for the over-under, that line seems pretty reasonable to me. Both guys are older and they've been finished a little bit lately, but I still think this one is likely to go the distance. It's no lock. Again, Chris Curtis is coming down in weight, 15 pounds for the first time in years. Maybe he just gets one shot killed. But gun to my head, I'd say this one goes the distance. So maybe the over will get my play. But as of now, I'm sitting this one out, and my pick is definitely Chris Curtis wins, and he wins by decision. Next up, we have George Tokkos taking on Junior Tafa. My prediction for this fight is Junior Tafa wins, and I've got him winning by knockout in round fuck. We'll go with round one, I guess. But regardless of which round I've chosen, I have no confidence in my prediction whatsoever. I mean, I do think if Junior Tafa is the win, it's much more likely to be a knockout than anything else. So, yeah, that is, in my opinion, the most likely outcome, but it's not getting a bet from me. Not yet, anyway. Junior Tafa, he's minus 166. Those are tight odds. And if I felt even slightly strongly about this, I would bet on it. But it doesn't get my bet. There's too much downside. First of all, Junior Tafa had a life and death fight in his last fight against Sean Sharaf, which was a good victory with him winning in round two, only because it was a comeback. And he had looked like shit earlier in that fight. And he looked better, I guess, in the beginning. But in the end of round one, he was rocked, taken down, mounted, and beaten on, and almost finished. Looked like he was beaten to the point of exhaustion, but he had taken that fight under better circumstances than Sean Sharaf. So he outlasted Sean and was able to get him out of there in round two. But still, it wasn't a great look overall for Junior Tafa. And in general, even with him being in impeccable shape, which is not something I could guarantee, I would still have doubts in him technically as a fighter, because I think there are technical holes for him on the ground. He can be exploited on the ground. That's where he's lost against Walter Walker, who laced up a nice heel hook in round one, and then he slapped Walter in the face because he's got a lot of class. It wasn't the hardest slap, but whatever. Marcos Rogerio de Lima got him out of there with leg kicks and punches. I mean, Marcos Rogerio de Lima is a monster. And he actually filled in for his brother, Junior, to take that fight. Really did him a solid. And he also lost to Muhammad Usman, who was able to crowd him and make it a physical fight where he wasn't able to do his thing at range. And Muhammad Usman was able to slow him down. George Tokkos, I think, is better than him on the ground. So there are points to be scored there, and certainly a finish waiting there for him against Junior Tafa. But George Tokkos is not the greatest ground fighter to begin with, even if he's better than Tafa. And also, he's lacking the physicality of these heavyweight monsters that have beaten him. You know, these guys are bigger, stronger men and better fighters as well, more established guys. And my pick is Tafa because I think George Tokkos can't easily plug himself into these losses here. But yeah, Junior Tafa, there's always going to be doubt in him. I think there's a gigantic hole in his ship on the ground, so to speak. That makes no sense, but you know what I mean. And on the feet, he was rocked against Sean Sharaf. So maybe there's something brewing there. But I think this fight, he's going to be able to keep the fight standing, and he's going to be too dangerous for George Tokkos. George Tokkos, Tuco Tokkos, he's been knocked out twice, and he was submitted against Umar Sy. But he was knocked out against, I wish this fucking page would load, Ty Guerter, got him out of there in Bellator. I know this shit. I don't need this page to load. Ty Guerter got him out of there in Bellator in round three. And he also got knocked out by Ming Yang Zhang. That was much more of a legit concussion. He was knocked out there. But Ming Yang Zhang is whatever, 4-0 in the UFC or something. So it's not like it's the biggest stain on one's record. But still, he's a guy that doesn't have that signature victory yet. Maybe it's over this guy, Gabriel Timateo or something. Myron Dennis, he got out of there with an arm injury, posted on a takedown, so whatever. But yeah, anytime he's faced anybody decent or UFC level, he's been defeated. And that includes his 2 UFC losses, where Umar C went through him on the ground, and Navajo Sterling really got the better of him, beat him up and looked good there. But I still think George Tokkos, despite being at the bottom of the UFC level of the UFC rankings and whatever, or near the bottom, he's still got upside against Junior Tafa in this fight. It's not enough to get me to bet on him, but it's enough to scare me from betting on Junior Tafa. I feel like if there's no play for me here with the lines you see in front of you, the money line or the over under. But I'll wait for the props to see if there's something there. And certainly under 2.5 rounds, I would like that line, assuming it comes in around minus 250 or something. But again, I think this is a very dichotomous fight. Junior Tafa is a dangerous guy on the feet. Tokkos has been exposed there. He's been knocked out there. And on the ground, Junior Tokkos may not be BJ Penn or Marcelo Garcia or whoever, but he's definitely, I think, got enough to exploit Tafa there. So, in general, I'm staying away from this, but the pick is Junior Tafa by round 1 knockout or whatever. Next up, we have Vitor Petrino taking on Austin Lane. My prediction for this fight is Vitor Petrino wins, and I've got him winning by knockout in round 1. And of course, if I'm wrong about that, I'll take Vitor Petrino winning by knockout in round 2. I think he wins by knockout here. Even though he's been finished in his last 2 fights, Vitor Petrino, he was knocked out against Dustin Jacoby and submitted against Anthony Smith. I still think he's the healthier guy here, and he is moving up in weight to heavyweight here, which should theoretically only help his chin, and it should help his speed and everything else. I mean, it should hurt his speed, but should give him a speed advantage relative to heavyweights. And I think he's going to be the better fighter, the more dangerous guy, and the guy in better shape anyway. So he's got a lot going for him, and he is definitely my pick to win. I think Austin Lane might have one good takedown in him, assuming he's coming in looking to play the role of the grappler. I think he might have one good takedown in him, but he's not going to be able to go through Petrino on the ground, just control him for a small bit. But then I think that's it. And I think Vitor Petrino is still standing, whereas Austin Lane kind of falls off a cliff after that. And that's best case scenario. Austin Lane, he's a guy whose durability I do not trust. He's been knocked out in all 6 of his losses. And they're different, but in general, I don't trust his durability at all. And I think Vitor Petrino is incredibly fucking dangerous. And he's going to have an extra 30 pounds packed into his punches here. And I think he's going to go through Austin Lane. Petrino is way too big of a favorite at minus 750. I would never bet on that. Again, these are heavyweights. I know I said Austin Lane isn't going to knock him out, but he certainly could. He's a fucking gigantic man. But yeah, the money line would never be worth it. The under, I think, has value on it. I bet on the under, minus 166 for under 1.5 rounds, which I'm typically not crazy about under 1.5 rounds. But here, I think it's a different story. Even if Austin Lane does control him for the whole 5 minutes in round 1, I would still feel pretty confident in that bet, to be honest. But I can tell you, with the line set here at minus 166, I'll be waiting for under 2.5 rounds to come in at minus 300 or whatever, and I'll treat that as a lock, because I do consider it a lock, and I'll use that to pad every bet and every parlay that I play from that point moving forward, aside from the ones with Vitor Petrino by knockout, which, yeah, I'll wait for all the props to drop and the point spread and everything. But I can tell you I see value on under 1.5 rounds here. And in general, I'll play, if the lines are proportionate and under 2.5 rounds comes in around minus 300, minus 350 or something, yeah, I'll use that to pad everything. I consider that a lock. But yeah, Vitor Petrino, he's definitely trying to reinvent himself here. He was submitted against Anthony Smith. That wasn't a total, it is a grappling loss, but it's not like he was out grappled thoroughly there. He was just tapped. Anthony Smith pulled a guillotine on him and got him out of there. But but he showed grappling progress along the way. Got a nice round 3 arm triangle choke over Marcin Prachnio, and that may not be the best person to submit, but still, for that to be your only submission victory and to get it in round 3 is a good look. And of course, his fight with Anton Turkalj was a back and forth, bit of a sloppy fight, but a back and forth grappling fight with a guy that's ostensibly a better grappler than he is. And I thought that was a good look, him winning that positional battle in, again, a sloppy fight. So yeah, Vitor Petrino, he's got a lot going for him here. Still got a lot more upside despite the recent skid. And I'm taking him to right the ship and get a knockout over Austin Lane. The pick is round 1, and the bets are whatever the fuck I just talked about. Next up, we have Morgan Charriere versus Nate the Train Landwehr. My prediction here is Morgan wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout. Although a decision wouldn't surprise me, but I'll pick him to win by knockout. Nate, he's only been stopped 3 times by knockout, but they are all in the last few years. They're all in the UFC. Doo Ho Choi got him out of there, and he began his UFC career with 2 losses to Herbert Burns and Julian Erosa, both of which got him out of there with knees, one of them flying against Julian. But yeah, Morgan Charriere, he's a very dangerous guy. I don't think he would need anything flying to cash in on an increasingly fragile chin. And yeah, I think the first knockout would certainly go to Morgan Charriere. And yeah, I mean, Morgan Charriere is incredibly durable. He's got 11 losses, most of which are tight decisions, which is what I'll get to in a minute or so. But he does have one finish loss, and that's a submission with a heel hook way back when. So in general, considering the level of opposition he's faced in every other loss and in a ton of his victories, I think Morgan Charriere is almost impossible to get out of there these days. And yeah, we've seen him hurt. Nathaniel Wood had him hurt, but he's always fought through adversity, and he's been in some rough spots throughout the years, fighting over in Cage Warriors. But he's been able to push through, and he's been a reliable grinder, even in 25-minute fights. But that's a thing. He's got all these decision losses, 11 decisions. The last one to Nathaniel Wood was a little cleaner. That was a unanimous decision. But I believe the 6 losses prior to that are all by split or majority decision, which just shows he's got a knack for close fights. He's not the most dominant fighter, Morgan Charriere. And if he allows Nate Landwehr into a close fight, if he allows him into this one, Nate Landwehr has every trait in the book. This guy has an abundance of traits, natural traits as a fighter, true fucking grit. The thing is, some physical traits are starting to creep in. And again, now he's no longer so durable. But, without these recent losses by finish, you add durability to Nate Landwehr, and he's a problem for anybody. The guy's really well-rounded. I mean, he may not be the greatest submissionist. He's only got 2 submissions, but they're both in the UFC. A 2nd-round rear naked choke over Austin Lingo, and a 3rd-round anaconda over Ludovic Kline, which might be his most impressive victory, even though this David Onama war was incredible, as well as his first UFC win over Darren Elkins in a fucking 15-minute war. Nate Landwehr, he's got every trait in the book. And that David Onama fight itself was a showcase of every one of them. Although, again, he had more durability back then. But yeah, he went to war, and he outlasted David Onama. They were both fighting like zombies, and Nate Landwehr was able to dig deeper. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was able to beat Morgan Charriere. But I think it would have to be where he's given hell, and he battles through it. Morgan Charriere, I've got him winning. I think if you told me it went the distance, I would pick Morgan to win anyway. I think he's the cleaner fighter, and Nate's going to be looking to dirty it up. And also, if you told me it ended by finish, I would say certainly that's Morgan Charriere by knockout. Again, Nate can come alive, and if he gets a finish, it's in the 3rd round of a fucking war. But nobody's been able to finish Morgan, nobody with a knockout, and he just has that one submission loss way back when. even though Nate has been able to come through with big submission victories at the highest level, I still would be very surprised if he was able to finish Morgan Charriere, especially by submission. Nate, he's slowly exiting his prime, I'd say, at 37 years old. I didn't like the way he looked against Doo-Ho Choi, his last fight, which is not everything, but it's the most recent example of Nate Landwehr we have. And yeah, that was a tough loss. Doo-Ho Choi was on fire. Nate Landwehr was a step and a half behind that whole fight and was eventually put away at the end. So yeah, based on last performance and historical durability and all the rest of it between the two guys, I've got Morgan Charriere winning this fight. I think he's able to stand up to any surprises from Nate Landwehr, and at the very least make it to the final bell if things aren't going his way. And I think certainly he gets the first knockout between the two. So Morgan is the pick. And the bet does not exist as of now. He's too big of a favorite for me. And the over-under I couldn't make my peace with. Yeah, it's favored to go the distance. But still, the pick is Morgan Charriere, even if I'm staying away from this altogether. Next up, we have Steve Garcia versus Calvin Kattar. My prediction for this fight is the guy who's won one fight out of his last six beats the guy who's won six out of his last six, because I'm a jerk off. I've got Calvin Kattar winning this fight, and I've got him winning by decision. If Calvin Kattar loses this fight, I'll never pick him again, okay? I'm aware I picked him to beat Yusuf Zalal, and it looked like a fucking pair of clown shoes. Even though I thought he came alive in round three, and in the end made it a close fight on paper. But still, I think Yusuf Zalal is fantastic, first of all. I mean, I think he is fucking awesome, and I think he's going places. And we're going to see him fight some big fights in the next few years. So that's a loss that'll get better with age. But the other losses you could explain away as well. I mean, the level of competition kind of does all the explaining, but you can say, hey, he won against Josh Emmett. That was a bad decision. This Arnold Allen loss was a bullshit injury. And Max Holloway was the best we've ever seen a fighter look in the history of fist fighting. And that also happens to be Max Holloway. So, yeah, you could explain away his losses, but in general, I'm just saying Calvin Kattar is very fucking tough. He's never been knocked out. Again, that one loss is an injury by TKO there. And he's only ever been submitted once, and that was back in the late 90s or whatever. So he's incredibly durable, just like Morgan Charriere. He's in the same class, only he's 10 years older, so there's a little bit more concern there. But I still think he's rock solid durable, and I think he's able to stand up to the potent danger of Steve Garcia. Yeah, it's pretty fucking potent. He's got 14 knockouts out of his 17 victories, and of course, he's got nothing but knockouts here as of late in the UFC, beating some really good fighters. On his recent streak, he's got great wins over Mel Costa and Kyle Nelson, who has a lot of momentum. But the best win on this streak might be Chase Hooper, who he got out of there with relative ease to begin this winning streak. And of course, he's also knocked out Chepe Mariscal, even though it wasn't the greatest stoppage in my opinion. But yeah, just a really dangerous guy, Steve Garcia, pure danger. And I guess it wouldn't totally surprise me if he was able to finish Calvin Kattar, but it would still surprise me, despite the age and the rest of it. So yeah, I've got Calvin Kattar surviving Steve Garcia, and from there, I think Calvin Kattar is able to come alive in this fight like he wasn't against Yusuf Zalal. And I think we're going to see a closer version, something closer to the version of the guy that beat Giga Chikadze 3.5 years ago, way back when he was 34 or whatever. But yeah, he's proven himself enough. Giga Chikadze, Dan Ige, cracking the face of Jeremy Stevens, and then even going back to Lamas and Burgos, Andre Fili. He's definitely proven himself throughout the years. And even though the writing may be on the wall here, like I said, you could still explain away a lot of these losses, and you could certainly forgive a lot of them. I think this is a levels type of situation. I've got Calvin Kattar winning this fight. I was excited to bet on him before I looked at the odds. I thought he'd be plus 400 because Steve Garcia is so dangerous. And I thought, oh, stylistically, I can't wait to pounce on this. But it's pretty much a toss-up anyway. The odds makers, I think, released close odds. And, of course, the betting public made them even closer. I don't know. I didn't track the odds, but they're pretty close right now anyway. And the betting public has had a chance to shape them. So, yeah, very close fight on paper, and I'm going with Calvin Kattar. Garcia, he's not infallible himself. I should talk about his losses. My prediction is Kattar wins by decision. I should tell you that. But he was knocked out in his last fight, in his last loss, Garcia, against Mahashate. Mahashate caught him cold with a straight right counter and knocked him out. In the past, so he's only lost to good fighters. Ricky Tercios, Joe Warren, who's a Bellator monster, pure wrestler and a fucking monster. I mean, he could rough you up in the clinch, too. By a Joe Warren, Elon Cruz. These are all guys that are UFC level or hovering around that level at the time, and they're forgivable losses. But Calvin Kattar, despite things looking one way, he's still a rock solid UFC fighter with one hell of a resume. And here he's getting a guy who isn't going to dry hump him or dance around him. And I think Calvin Kattar still got those traits, and I expect him to win this fight. How much do I expect it? Not too much because I haven't bet on him yet, even though the odds are razor thin and he's an underdog. If I felt more strongly, I would bet on this, but instead, my only bet is on the over. Over 1.5 rounds at minus 145. I think Calvin Kattar can be the faster fighter and frustrate Steve Garcia, and I think he's durable to stand up to the danger of Steve. Like I said, Steve's been caught cold. He was knocked out in a minute in that fight against Mahashate. But I still think if Calvin Kattar was to win, it'd much more likely be a decision. And if it was a finish, it would much more likely be later. Kind of like those fucking uppercuts he hit on Shane Burgos back when. But yeah, Kattar is the pick. Not with a lot of confidence, but I'm hoping the fucking vet comes through in a big way here, just for the fuck of it. Okay, the air conditioning has made itself known. It's made its presence known, and I have since decided to put on my bathrobe. Just in time for the co-main event here. Gabriel Bonfim taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. First, let me say I hope Wonderboy kicks his ass. Secondly, I've got Gabriel Bonfim winning. That is my prediction, and I'm going to take him winning by submission. And that's really just because he's so dangerous. It's not because Wonderboy was submitted recently against Shavkat and because he is the striker. But in general, I've always thought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's really tough to get out of there. And if you don't believe me, go ask Tyron Woodley. He'll tell you all about it with a fucking 4th-round guillotine as Stephen Thompson was half concussed. But I still think Gabriel Bonfim is just that dangerous. He's beyond Shavkat dangerous. I think specifically with his chokes, and you don't need a takedown to get a choke. He just needs an opportunity. If you bend down to tie your shoes, or if you're clinched up with him, he just needs to turn a corner, and he can lace up a choke very quickly, and he's that fucking dangerous. And he showed against Chaos Williams, one of the best fighters he's beaten, if not the best, that he could get it done down the stretch. I consider seconds left in round 2 to be down the stretch. But yeah, Gabriel Bonfim, he's been defeated once. It was against Nicholas Dalby 2 years ago, almost. And it was a total cardio collapse. And he's only a few fights removed. So it's not like that stain is completely erased. But I do like the way he's looked in general fighting these last 2 fights against Angelosa and Chaos Williams. But yeah, Dalby just 3 fights ago outlasted him and pounded the fight out of him. And that was a very big win and a big upset. But yeah, there's no telling whether or not that will come back to haunt Gabriel Bonfim. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson may not have the punch-for-punch power of Nicholas Dalby, but he's a tenacious guy, and if he got that same Bonfim in that same position, I think he's putting him away as well. But I think Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's primary path to victory is out jousting Bonfim. Bonfim, he's an excellent grappler, but he's also a really good boxer. And he really leans on that jab. He's incredibly sharp and very technical. And I think he's going to cause problems, frankly, for Stephen Thompson in that jousting battle. Even though Thompson's always going to have mobility and agility on anybody, even though he's 40 fuck years old, he's just that karate guy, and he's got that style and the cardio to back it up. And I think Stephen Wonderboy Thompson could definitely out joust Gabriel Bonfim. Bonfim, I've never seen him. I've seen him lose one round, really. It was against this guy, Brenner Alberth Bajeto, and it was a 3-minute round. That looks like it's a fight that was ended in the 11th minute in round 3, but no. That's actually the 6th minute of the fight, or the 7th minute of the fight. But the 2 3-minute rounds before that were split 1-1. And the only reason he lost round 2 is because he was clipped with a big punch. He was also crowded and whatever, but he definitely lost the round. But yeah, he was clipped. Not saying that can't happen against Wonderboy, but my point is it's tough to outpoint Gabriel Bonfim as well. It's not like he's a guy who's easy to outpoint. Again, he's very technical, and he fights behind a jab. He's a great jouster himself. But I think in tight, he's the more dangerous guy, certainly with his grappling, but even with his striking. I think he's more powerful than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's got great hooks. Wonderboy, he brings some spinning attacks and shit. But it's been a while since we've seen him concuss somebody, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And speaking of which, Wonderboy's been concussed recently. Joaquin Buckley knocked him out. That was his second knockout ever, but of course it took place when he was 42 years old. I believe he was 42. Yeah. So, it's not like it doesn't mean anything. It could mean the world at this point when you're that age. But I still like the way Wonderboy looked in general in that fight. I don't know what the scorecards were. I rewatched the fight. It was very close. But Wonderboy was in it. Wonderboy was definitely in it. He was taking it to Buckley. And there were moments where he looked sharper, distinctly sharper. And, before that, he got finished again by Shavkat. And Shavkat could have been fighting for the world title in his next fight. Could be fighting in his next fight for the world title, whatever happens there. So, yeah, it's not like Wonderboy is distinctly on his way out, despite all this red you see here. Of course, those are two champions and challenges as well, Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns. But I still think here, Gabriel Bonfim, he's such an opportunist. He just needs one moment with Stephen Thompson. One moment where he's certainly getting the better of him in the clinch. Or again, if Stephen Wonderboy Thompson ends up bending over for any reason, that neck can be laced up. And of course, Gabriel Bonfim, if he can take down Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he can certainly go through him with ease. And I think the submission threat is going to be there like Wonderboy hasn't felt in the past, even with Gilbert Burns. I think Bonfim is much more dangerous, even though Burns has incredible jiu-jitsu overall. And certainly not with Bilal Muhammad. But, yeah, he's got these rear naked chokes here. This one against this guy, Rocha, he got that standing pretty much, just turned a corner and ripped the guy back with a tight choke. He's a real opportunist, and we've seen it work at the UFC level. And, again, despite that big stain of getting outlasted and fatiguing, collapsing against Dalby, his 2 fights since have been good bounce backs. A nice rare decision victory, the only decision victory in his career, and it's in his very next fight against Angelosa. And even though it wasn't a picture-perfect fight, I thought he battled hard and won all 3 rounds, which does include round 3, of course. And against Chaos Williams, I thought he looked great there, and I thought Chaos Williams was a step up. And he ended up going through Chaos Williams and getting him out of there with seconds left in the 10th minute of the fight. So I've got to go with Bonfim here. He's 27 years old. He can right wrongs more easily than Thompson, who's 42. and everything's trending towards Bonfim. The odds are lopsided, where if it was just the money line, I'd be telling you the only values with Thompson. But Thompson, I still think his primary path to victory is decision. So if I'm going to bet on his side at all, I will wait for the prop. But right here, without anything but the over-under and the money lines available, the only thing I have bet on is the under. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he's up against a dangerous guy here. And I think Gabriel Bonfim can lace up that choke. And on the flip side, if I'm wrong, even though Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's primary path to victory is decision, Bonfim's only loss is a total cardio collapse where he got finished in round 2. So who the fuck knows? But yeah, under 2.5 is definitely my play here. And I'll wait for the props. God, I need to shut the fuck up. In the main event of the evening, we have Derek Lewis versus Taliesin Teixeira. My prediction for this fight, I've got to go with Taliesin Teixeira, and I'm going to take him winning by knockout in round 1. I'm picking against Derek Lewis and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, back-to-back fights. These are two of my favorite guys, maybe my favorite fighter in each respective division. But I do think Taliesin Teixeira is just that dangerous. I can't say what he's going to look like in a long fight. I do think he's got to be exploited with cardio and grappling. And Derek Lewis, I think, is underrated with his cardio and grappling. I can't say he's good, but I can say it's deceptive, his cardio and his grappling. He's a guy who's outlasted plenty of good fighters. And even though he doesn't have a lot of submission victories, he's a guy who's survived people on top of him and then turned things around, and he advances the mount and gets the finish, even over Shamil Abdurakhimov in round 4. But, early in his UFC career, fighting good fighters, maybe not great fighters, but he was the guy that was weathering the storm and outlasting and putting away his opponent on multiple occasions. And those traits have been there for him. I mean, he got a nice round 3 knockout over Rodrigo Nascimento in his last fight, which I thought was a really good performance. But here, I don't think Derek Lewis is the most likely grappler. I mean, shit kind of falls on the floor with him sometimes, but, he does hit takedowns here and there, but he's not Mr. Wrestler. I mean, here he might be trying to play the role of the wrestler, which would really be nice. I would love to see that more than anything else on this card. Is Derek Lewis taking the fight to the ground and advancing and making something happen there? But I think on the feet, he's much, his cardio is much more manageable on the feet. He works at a slow pace and then springs into action pretty quickly. And of course, he's always got a power advantage, maybe even over Njokuani when they fought. And they each landed like 7 strikes. But yeah, Derek Lewis, he's always got that equalizer. I mean, I just talked about cardio and grappling. He can punch you in the face and knock you out more quickly than anybody. He's got the power. But I still think he's the more fragile guy. He's now 40 years old. He's been finished 7 times by TKO, twice by submission. And again, I was there for one of them against Daniel Cormier. But here we're talking knockouts, and I think Taliesin Teixeira handles himself well at range and in tight. He's got those elbows and knees and the 6'8" thing going on, and I've got him going through Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis, who once was able to recover from nasty body shots against Volkov, I think here he's fighting a young 20-whatever-year-old guy with Volkov's frame and maybe some more danger. So Taliesin Teixeira is the pick, and the bet does not exist right now. Under minus 240 for under a round and a half. I definitely think that hits. Don't get me wrong. I've got him winning by round 1 knockout, but I haven't bet on it. And the money line is minus 280 for Taliesin Teixeira. No thanks. But I'll wait for the props. See if there's a way I can cash in money on my bet, and then I'll see if there's a way that I can blow it all on the other side, betting on Derek Lewis, because I'm a jerk off. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.